Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching our webinar on network resilience on campus. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss how network teams at colleges and university campuses can deploy a smart out-of-band solution to ensure a resilient network infrastructure. So before we dive into the webinar, I do just want to bring your attention to a few resources that we've made available. So right under this video, you'll see some links. There's a link to this webinar deck, which is the deck that we're presenting today. There's also a link to our product data sheets. This would include all of the technical specs and features of the products mentioned today, as well as our Lighthouse brochure, which goes into the technical specs and features of our centralized management software. So here's a quick agenda of what we'll be discussing today. Right after this slide, I'll give a brief introduction into OpenGear if you're unfamiliar with who OpenGear is. I'll then talk about what out-of-band management is. We'll talk about an application of smart out-of-band deployed on a campus setting. And then Dirk Schuma is going to present a case study on the University of Siegen and how they deployed our smart out-of-band solution on their campus. And then lastly, I'll include a slide for how you can contact us if you have further questions that you'd like to ask us. So who is OpenGear? So basically, we're a provider of critical IT infrastructure management solutions. And another way of putting that is we deliver solutions to ensure network resilience. So we have three core competencies or three core aspects of that model. They include smart out of band. And we'll get into the details of this in a second, but basically smart out of band is our approach to adding a secondary management network to your infrastructure to ensure network resilience. We have secure provisioning. This is our solution for allowing network teams to remotely provision new network devices at remote sites without physically having to be present on site and doing that securely. And then lastly, we have NetOps automation. And NetOps automation is our solution for automating the network operation workflows that you might engage on a day-to-day basis. This could be everything from, again, provisioning new devices to configuration management and even reconfiguration of your devices and doing it all automatically and securely. So we've been doing this since 2004, and actually just recently in 2019, we were acquired by Digi International. So what is out of band? So I always like to start off with a very simple explanation using a cell phone, because we all have cell phones and we all understand how cell phones work. So basically, with your cell phone, you have a network that connects you to your carrier, whether that be T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, or whoever it is that you use. Now, the problem with this scenario is if there's ever an issue with your primary network, you have no recourse to resolve the issue, to remediate the issue, because the network itself is compromised. So what you need is a secondary network. So this could be a secondary phone, it could be a landline phone, but essentially you would use this secondary network to contact your carrier to resolve the issue with your primary network. So essentially an out-of-band network is a secondary management network. It provides critical access to your network in the event the primary network is unavailable. And it helps you avoid truck rolls and expensive reputation damages because you can access the network remotely without having to be physically on site to rectify the issue. So I want to now show you what this smart out-of-band network looks like in a campus scenario. So here's what a basic network might look like on campus. So as you can see here, this network is pretty fragile. If any one of these lines gets disconnected or has an interruption, that's a building that's no longer connected to the network. And that's a building that your network team most likely is going to have to travel to bring that network back online. So with a smart out-of-band network deployed, as you can see now, we have console servers deployed at each building. And in this scenario, I've actually included the console servers that have embedded cellular. So what's happening here is the cellular 4G LTE connection is now providing that secondary out-of-band access. So there's two things that this allows your network team to do. The first is they can use that cellular connection to actually remediate and rectify network issues at each building. So they can use this network to power cycle devices. They can use this network to push configuration changes. And they can do that all through Lighthouse, which is connected to the console servers, and the console servers being connected to your network equipment at each building. The second thing is the console servers are actually smart enough to be able to detect network issues and automatically fail over to a cellular connection. So while these buildings might have lost their primary WAN connectivity, they can still remain online via the cellular connection until the primary network can be repaired. So just to recap, we have our centralized console management solution in Lighthouse deployed at the site where the network team is. We have our failover to cellular that is providing not only the secondary out-of-band access to the buildings, but also providing a secondary network for the building to remain online while repairs need to be made. And then the whole solution is smart enough to allow your network teams to detect and remediate issues remotely. So here's a quick matrix that kind of just explains our product offering. We'll start at the top here where we have our centralized management solution, Lighthouse. That's the software that is connecting all of your OpenGear nodes, and it's allowing your team to have visibility into your entire infrastructure. So below that, we have our console servers. We'll start on the left side where we have our low density servers. This is our compact 4 to 8 port units, and we have two of them. We have a ACM 7000-L, which includes embedded cellular. And then we also have our standard ACM 7000, which still provides you with all the smart out-of-band features, just without the cellular component. On the right side, we have our higher density console servers, starting with the IM 7200, which is our unit that can support 8 to 48 ports. And it also includes a 24E model, which is 24 Ethernet ports. And then we also have our CM 7100, which allows for up to 96 ports, and it does not include cellular. So that's a quick introduction into smart out-of-band and out-of-band management in general. In this next segment, we're going to have Dirk Schuma, who is our regional sales manager in Northern Europe, explain how OpenGear was able to deploy a smart out-of-band solution at the University of Siegen. Dirk, take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. I would like to talk a little bit about OpenGear in the context with university and education. And just looking at our database, it's quite amazing because we are working with more than 300 plus universities globally, majority in the US and Canada, but also in Europe. We have about 50 universities we're working with, in the German speaking area 10 plus. And the University of Siegen I'm talking about here today is one of the larger installations we have. For those who don't know exactly where it is, Siegen is about 60 miles, 90 kilometers away from Cologne, so in the west part of Germany. And how did it all start? Well, in my previous life, I met Alexander Kionke, who is the head of IT infrastructure of the university. We tried to sell some out-of-band solution to them those days, but the main criteria they were looking for, we couldn't match. So, and I'll go into that in the next slides, but we didn't have SFP, we didn't have cellular connection, we didn't have IP connection. So all that basically fell apart, and we didn't come together. And just 30 days after I started at OpenGear, we had the Cisco Live in Berlin. Alexander came to our booth and we had a chat, and that's how it all started. So let me give you some introduction to the university so you know what the structure looks like. They have about 19,000 students at the university right now. They have 260 professors, 1,200 scientific researchers, and about 800 people on the technical and administrative side who are working at the University of Siegen in total. They have a campus which is spread out in multiple locations over roughly about a region of 5 miles or 8 kilometers. And they have their network equipment deployed into different rooms, different areas all over those different buildings. So it's not so easy for them to administer all this IT equipment because it's spread all over different technical rooms on different floors in different buildings. The central IT is in one of those buildings, so every time they see a network issue happening or they want to do some reconfiguration or adding equipment, they basically need to walk to these locations, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable. What are they using in terms of network equipment? They're mainly using switches from Cisco and Juniper, and this is basically the core infrastructure they want to manage remotely out of band. What are the challenges the network team is facing? Well, as I said, right now they have multiple rooms with network equipment spread all over the campus area. In this case, it's about 200 rooms they have network equipment in. And one topic was very important for them, which was on the one hand accessing this network equipment, but it's not only accessing it, they want to make sure that they have an easy and secure way of installing new firmware updates on all these network devices. Right, so if the standard SSH connection is no longer available and it's not possible to connect through the devices through SSH, they still want to have an alternative path to access these devices through the console and the CLI. In addition to network outages problems, they were facing in the past a lot of problems with the software updates. So they had often had the case that they try to install a firmware update or a software update on a specific network device, and it failed. And with that, the network device hung and the local network in this particular area was no longer available. So they wanted to remediate those issues with misconfiguration or wrong software updates, software patches, and make sure that even if that happens, they have an alternative path to this network equipment. And the last requirement was, because they have a fiber infrastructure on the entire campus, they needed out-of-band devices which had fiber SFP ports, so they could simply and easily implement those into the network infrastructure. What is our approach? What is our solution? How did we try to help them? Well, in the first place, we had several meetings with them. We were looking at the offering from OpenGear and at the portfolio and decided that the small boxes you saw in the previous slides Andrew showed you, the ACM models would be the perfect fit for them, because in these IT offices or IT rooms, they have about 4 to 8 network devices. And as the ACM has between 4 and 8 serial ports, or 4 serial ports and 4 IP ports, this would be the perfect fit for them. So in a POC, first of all, they deployed several of those boxes on the campus, all with fiber interfaces. And as we saw, some of them had only 4 ports, no IP ports. Some of them were equipped with 4 serial ports and 4 Ethernet ports. Some had 8 ports, some were with cellular, some were without cellular. So it was an entire mix of the ACM product family. In addition to the ACM console servers, they were also looking in a centralized management, which in our case is called Lighthouse, because you can imagine if you are deploying up to 200 console servers, you don't want to manage each and every one individually. You just want to have one centralized tool which gives you the access to all those devices in one view. We see Lighthouse or the use of Lighthouse in 3 different categories. The first one, we see Lighthouse as a central hub for the out-of-band management network. So you can access and view and administrator all OpenGear console servers with one tool. So the console server establishes a secure VPN connection to Lighthouse, and then all the connection and in quotes conversation between Lighthouse and the console server is done through this secure VPN. So in terms of security, this is a perfect fit. Secondly, we see Lighthouse as a console gateway. So you have all the visibility and access to all the console ports, which are offered by the OpenGear console servers. So you can individually access each and every console port and the device which is attached to this console port and make the access very granular due to that. And then the third thing is it's a centralized or central management portal. So with Lighthouse, you are able to set configurations and deploy those configurations from Lighthouse to all the OpenGear devices. So you define a configuration, you store it on Lighthouse, and then you deploy it over time or through a scheduler to the OpenGear devices to your convenience. And that's in the case of University Siegen, the network managers, they configured and defined so-called enrollment bundles, which makes it very easy to get a new ACM on the remote side up and running, because you don't need to configure it manually. You just deploy this configured bundle to the OpenGear device and it's up and running. The POC took a few months because these guys were very thorough in testing hardware and software, but in the end, they were super happy. They got really great support from the SE team we have here in Europe, which was highly appreciated by them. And yeah, in the end, the decision was made that they're going to purchase the ACMs plus Lighthouse for their general deployment. What is the outcome and the results and which impacts and benefits did this solution give to the guys from University Siegen? As we mentioned, first of all, it's a very easy deployment for the OpenGear devices and the network equipment, even though they have this decentralized infrastructure. It's secure because, as I mentioned before, the OpenGear device establishes a VPN connection towards Lighthouse. And once this Lighthouse connection to the console server through the VPN is established, all the traffic and firmware updates, etc., will be deployed through this VPN channel. The university gained a real robust system for diagnostics as well, because now with this solution, they can even set triggers, for example, on the remote sites, and depending on the trigger they set on the console server, this could be temperature or any other event, they can set alerts which will be sent from the console server to an administrator, to the technical team, in case something happens in this local network room the OpenGear console server is installed in. So that makes it very comfortable for them, and they can even, before some network problems occur, can be notified, and they can do some upfront product changes or something, and they don't really risk the network going down in this particular area anymore. Another benefit was from a financial point of view, because the ACMs were all equipped with SFP. They didn't need any media converters anymore from copper to SFP, which saved them some monies. And also in terms of reliability, they figured out that the OpenGear device, including SFP, is much more mature than having a non-SFP device and then having the media converters attached to it in every location. To summarize the experience we gained, I think the university got great support from OpenGear when there were technical questions through the SE team. The purchase then went very smooth through our European channel. And we basically have an overall happy customer who will purchase more OpenGear equipment if the network infrastructure is growing over time. Especially in these times with COVID-19 and access restrictions coming up to data centers and IT rooms, and in some cases to universities in general, I think this example shows that smart out-of-band and remote site management is even more critical than ever, right? Because just ask yourself, how will you as an IT specialist or your customers either configure, reconfigure, deploy new hardware, or simply just reboot a network switch? How will you manage and access this if you're not able to physically access this device because you're just not allowed to enter the location anymore? As you can see from the examples we just showed you, OpenGear has the right or offers the right answers and solutions to those questions, and will make your life much easier, and you'll gain access to your network equipment much faster again. Thanks for your attention. That was me, and back to you, Andrew.
All right. Thanks for that, Dirk. And thank you all for sticking around and for listening on this webinar. If you do have follow-up questions, here's a slide to kind of point you in a direction that you need to go. For the Americas, you can just email us at sales@opengear.com. We have an EMEA team that can be reached at EMEA@opengear.com, an APAC team that can be reached at APAC@opengear.com, and then lastly, for channel-related inquiries, reach us at channel@opengear.com. Thanks again for watching. We hope this webinar was useful to you and that you join us on the next one.